You ever have a moment so small, so ridiculously ordinary, it cracks your whole world open? Mine started with eggs. It was a lazy Sunday, sunlight spilling through the blinds like syrup, and the whole house humming with that half-awake weekend stillness. I pattered into the kitchen in socks, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and casually asked, "Hey, what's for breakfast?" Rachel didn't look up from her phone, just tapped at it once, twice. Then, without flinching, she said it. "I'm not your waitress. Make your own stupid eggs." Just like that. No smile, no playful jab, just cold. I stared at her, still half expecting the punchline. But she kept scrolling, her thumbnail tapping her screen like she hadn't just knifed the air between us. It wasn't just the words. It was how little they cost her to say. I opened the fridge, grabbed a carton of eggs, and set them on the counter, my hands moving slower than they needed to. My stomach twisted, not from hunger, but from something darker. Something. Awakening. Funny thing is, I used to love Sundays with Rachel. She'd put on old soul records, wander around in one of my flannels, and hum off-key while we made pancakes or burned the toast. We'd argue about whose turn it was to do laundry like it actually mattered. But this version of her, this cold, hollow Rachel, felt like a stranger wearing her skin. And me? I was Tom Dalton, 38, mortgage broker by day, creature of habit by nature. I brushed my teeth for exactly 2 minutes, flossed every other night like clockwork. I liked my lawn edged, my socks matched, my world tidy. Rachel used to tease me for it. Said I lived like a dad from a toothpaste commercial. She used to love that about me. But something had shifted. Not overnight, but slowly, like a tide pulling away sand grain by grain. Her smile had become a little too rehearsed. Her silences lasted a little too long. And lately, it wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't. This wasn't about eggs. This wasn't even about breakfast. It was about the way she looked at me now, like I was just another piece of furniture in the house she happened to share. And the worst part? I'd been excusing it, telling myself she was tired, stressed, maybe going through something personal, giving her grace that she never once asked for, but that I desperately needed her to deserve. But that Sunday, that single, venomous sentence, it pierced straight through the fog of denial. "I'm not your waitress." That was the first time I saw the truth. The first time I felt something sharp and dangerous stir in me. Not heartbreak, not confusion. Something colder. Something that said, she doesn't care what this does to you. And if she didn't care anymore, maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't either. Because as I stood there, eggs untouched, I realized something painfully clear. This wasn't neglect. This was contempt. And contempt? That's the beginning of the end. But Rachel didn't know me as well as she thought. She thought I'd stay passive, polite, predictable. She forgot I was watching, waiting. And when I move, I don't make noise. I make impact. That Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, watching it spin slow, each blade whispering some version of, "You're a fool." Rachel was in the bathroom for nearly an hour. I could hear the water running but no movement, just the soft hum of her voice. She was humming, not the sad kind, not the nostalgic kind. It was upbeat, breezy, like she wasn't in the same story I was living. When she finally slid under the covers beside me, she didn't say goodnight. She didn't even turn toward me, just faced the window and fell asleep within minutes. I stayed up, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the screen. I don't normally go through her socials, but something about that morning, the venom in her voice, made me realize she was showing me something, daring me to see it. So I looked. Not her profile, no, too careful. But her tagged photos? That's where people get sloppy. And there it was. A story posted 6 hours ago, still fresh. From someone I didn't recognize, screen name full of numbers, 0 mutual friends. Probably one of his. But she was in it. Clear as day. Rachel, my wife. Leaning into a kiss like it wasn't secret, like it wasn't shameful. Just open. The backdrop? A grimy Sunoco station on the edge of town. You know the one? Flashing green ATM sign, lottery posters peeling on the glass, a couple of motorcycles out front like props in a scene I never thought I'd be part of. And the guy? Couldn't have been older than 25. Tall, wiry, greasy blonde hair swept back in a way that screamed temporary charm. And that grin, the kind that thinks it knows how the story ends. I froze. It's not the cheating that hits you first. It's the ease. The way someone you built a life with can look so comfortable betraying it. I stared at the image for a long time, zoomed in, zoomed out, trying to see if maybe, I was reading too much into it. But lips don't lie. Neither do hands on hips or her eyes, closed and content in a way I hadn't seen in months. I don't know how long I sat there, but at some point, I started laughing. Soft at first, then louder, rawer. I wasn't enough for her, but he was. And that's when the real questions started piling in. Who was he? Where did she meet him? And what kind of woman kisses a stranger at a gas station like she's auditioning for recklessness? It didn't take long to find out. I screenshotted the story and texted it to a buddy of mine, Ryan, who worked nights over at the Brookline Market, one of those small-town groceries where everybody knew everybody. I kept it simple. You know this guy? Ryan replied within minutes. Yeah, man. Kevin. New guy. Stock boy turned cashier. Maybe 24. Kind of a clown. Why? I stared at his reply, the corners of my mouth pulling up into something that wasn't quite a smile. Kevin. Of course it was Kevin. She traded 12 years of marriage for a minimum wage fantasy who probably still lived with his mom. And suddenly, I didn't feel heartbroken anymore. I felt awake. Because when someone shows you their worth in a single frame, you stop bargaining. You start planning. Monday morning came with the same quiet routine, coffee brewing, morning radio murmuring in the background. But something in me had changed. I wasn't holding my breath anymore. I wasn't looking for signs of hope. I was looking for control. Rachel was still asleep when I left the house. I didn't wake her. Didn't want to see her stretching in our bed like nothing had changed, like gas station kisses weren't being filmed in public. By 9 a.m., I was sitting across from a woman in a navy blazer at our local bank branch, sipping bad coffee and nodding as she clicked through screens. I'd like to report possible fraud, I told her, calm as ever. Her brows lifted. Do you recognize the charges? I shook my head slowly. Some of them, but not all. And my wife, she's been a little careless with her wallet lately. She leaned in, voice gentle. You think someone else might be using the card? I gave her a tired smile. Maybe not someone, but definitely not me. Within an hour, every joint credit line we had was frozen. Auto payments? Canceled. I moved my savings into a new solo account under a separate routing number. Transferred the rest into a fresh debit line that didn't have her name on it. I wasn't being petty. I was being surgical. Because Rachel had made her choices with reckless ease, and I was done footing the bill for her impulsive reinvention. By lunchtime, I sent her a message. Hey, FYI, had to cancel the cards this morning. Fraud concerns. Switch to a different bank. We'll talk about setting you up with access once it's all secure. No anger. No accusations. Just pure, calculated calm. She replied 30 minutes later. What? What fraud? Why didn't you tell me first? I let it sit. Then typed back. Didn't want to worry you. Handling it. Her next reply came fast. Tom, we have bills due. I stared at the screen, then hit her with the line I'd been waiting to use. Exactly why I need tighter control. Things slip too easily these days. That silence afterward? That was the sound of her realizing the rules had changed. When I got home that evening, Rachel was pacing the living room, phone in hand, frustration simmering beneath her carefully neutral expression. You really froze everything without telling me? She asked, voice pitched high but brittle. I set my bag down, shrugged off my coat, and answered like I was reciting the weather forecast. Had to. There were signs. Weird charges. Didn't feel safe. She folded her arms, trying to pull herself taller. You couldn't have run it by me first? I met her gaze head on. Didn't think I needed to. I mean, we don't exactly talk about spending habits anymore, do we? That one hit. Her lips parted like she had a retort, but nothing came out. Look, I added, walking past her toward the kitchen. Once everything's secure, I'll get you set up. New accounts, new cards. Clean slate. She followed, close behind. A clean slate? You make it sound like I did something wrong. I opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and took my time twisting the cap. Then I turned, slow and even. Rachel, we're married, but that doesn't mean I bankroll chaos. That silence? That wasn't confusion. That was recognition. She knew exactly what I meant. It started with a flyer pinned near the laundromat exit. White paper, faded ink, but something about the name Dasha, written in elegant cursive, stuck with me. It said she cleaned homes and brought peace to chaos, whatever that meant. I didn't need a cleaning lady, but I called anyway. She arrived that Thursday, right on time. Mid-30s, maybe. Tall, with a kind of striking presence you don't expect from someone holding a mop. Her accent was unmistakable Ukrainian, and her eyes carried a sort of weight. like she'd already lived 3 different lives and didn't fear starting a 4th. "Hello, Tom," she said with a faint smile. "You were gentleman boss, yes?" Something about the way she said it, not flirting, not mocking, just honest. It caught me off guard. Rachel wasn't home when Dasha arrived the first time. She was out running errands, which these days meant whatever she didn't want to name. Dasha worked methodically. No idle chatter. Just music in her earbuds and the quiet sound of cloth against glass. She polished every surface like it owed her something. But what stood out wasn't her efficiency. It was where she lingered. My office. The sunroom. The hallway near the master bedroom. Always the spaces Rachel avoided lately, like they'd become contaminated by silence. I caught her once, standing in the doorway of the den, just looking, not cleaning, just soaking it in. "You like this room?" I asked. She turned slowly. "It is not the room. It is the quiet. Quiet tells you things." I didn't press. I didn't need to. Rachel came home midway through Dasha's second visit. The moment she saw her, long dark braids swinging, dusting the picture frames, her whole body tensed. She didn't say anything, just gave a short nod and disappeared upstairs. That night, she made dinner. Not microwave ravioli or takeout sushi. A real meal, salmon with lemon slices, asparagus, even wine. She lit candles, played jazz, asked me how my day was. I told her it was clean. She blinked. "Clean." I nodded. "Dasha's thorough." Her eyes flickered. "Right. Her." That was the only time her voice cracked a little around the edges. Dasha started coming twice a week. Every time she did, the house changed. It wasn't just cleaner, it felt observed, like someone had walked through the space and made note of its truths. Her presence lingered long after she left. A faint citrus scent in the hallway. The careful folding of dish towels. The quiet understanding in the way she never touched Rachel's side of the bed. Once, as she left, she paused by the door and looked at me thoughtfully. "You don't speak like angry man," she said. "But your house, it speaks loud." I gave a soft laugh. "And what does it say?" She shrugged. "It says, somebody break something, and nobody is fixing." Then she left. Just like that. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel crazy. I felt seen. At first, I thought maybe it was a fluke. One good dinner, a rare burst of effort. But then came the second night, and the third. And then I realized Rachel had entered a new phase. Performance. The scent hit me before I even walked through the front door. Rosemary, sage, and something else I couldn't quite place. A warm, inviting smell that once might have comforted me. Now it just made me squint suspiciously. She had candles going. Not the usual citrus ones she grabbed from the clearance rack. These were tall, ivory, slow burning. The kind you see in those curated home decor magazines. Our dining table was set with placemats. Cloth napkins. Napkins. I hadn't seen one of those since our 5th anniversary. She was in the kitchen wearing an apron I didn't know we owned, plating grilled chicken and couscous like she was auditioning for a cooking show. "Oh," I said, toeing off my shoes. "Do we have guests?" She didn't flinch. "Just you and me." I raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. I sat down, ate in silence while she watched me like she was trying to guess my every thought. This kept happening, night after night. Laundry that had once piled up for weeks was now folded within hours. My undershirts, once balled up like forgotten paper towels, were now ironed. She'd even rearranged the spice rack, alphabetically. And the refrigerator? Stocked like a food stylist had swept through it, cucumber water in glass jugs, labeled leftovers, fresh herbs clipped in mason jars. Rachel didn't explain any of it, didn't ask for compliments. But every time I looked at her, I could see the effort burning behind her eyes. A frantic kind of diligence, like she was scrubbing away guilt one countertop at a time. Dasha noticed, too. One Thursday, as she dusted the bookshelf, she glanced at the new bouquet sitting on the console table. "Your wife. She makes offerings," she said, her tone light but loaded. I glanced at the flowers. Perfectly arranged. Carefully placed. Forgotten 5 minutes after being put there. "Yeah," I muttered. "She's been busy lately." Dasha looked at me, head tilted. "Busy is good. But busy for who?" That question sat with me. See, Rachel never once said the words I was waiting to hear, never apologized, never confessed, never even hinted at why she'd gone from indifferent to domestic goddess overnight. She just kept moving through the house like someone trying to cover their tracks in reverse. And the more she tried, the more I leaned back. Because now I was watching her the way she used to watch me when she suspected something was off, quiet, still, cataloging every move. She wasn't winning me back. She was reacting. And reactions always gave something away. One night, after another perfect meal, Rachel poured 2 glasses of wine and sat across from me, candlelight catching the edge of her cheek. "You've seemed distant," she said softly, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I looked at her. Really looked. She was trying to be soft, approachable. The woman I once chased through the aisles of home goods, laughing because she'd found yet another mug with a sarcastic quote. But there was something behind her smile now. A tightness. A calculation. "I've just been tired," I said. She nodded slowly. "I get that." But her eyes, those same eyes that used to glow at me over Sunday brunch, they flickered with something close to fear. That was the thing about Rachel. She didn't believe in admitting loss. She believed in aesthetics, presentation, appearances. And right now, she was putting on the show of her life. But even a well-decorated house can't hide a cracked foundation. And I'd stopped being the audience a long time ago. I hadn't planned on visiting Brookline Market that night, but I needed a new razor, and the idea of a short drive and cool night air felt like a break from the strange stage play unfolding at home. The store buzzed with that end-of-day fatigue, tired mothers wrangling carts, teenagers stocking shelves, old songs playing overhead with too much treble. I wandered the aisles, letting the hum settle me. It wasn't until I hit checkout that I saw him, Ethan, my cousin on my mother's side. 22, gangly, working the register like someone who wasn't sure yet if life had given him a job or a sentence. "Hey, man," he said, grinning. "Didn't expect you in tonight." "Razor emergency," I replied, dropping the box on the counter. He scanned it, then lowered his voice slightly. "You know your wife used to come in here all the time." My eyebrows lifted. He continued, "With Kevin, the tall guy with the chain and the stupid earring." I didn't answer, just looked at him. "She stopped showing up, though. Haven't seen her in over a week," he added, leaning in a bit. "And Kevin? Well, he's been talking." I kept my voice steady. "What kind of talking?" Ethan shrugged, trying to play it cool but clearly hungry to spill. He told one of the deli girls he ended it. Said, and I quote, "She got too heavy, too clingy. Thought she could turn a fling into a fairy tale." His words, not mine. The words didn't hit like I thought they would. No heat, no ache, just a strange sense of confirmation. Rachel didn't end it. Kevin did. I almost laughed. Ethan kept talking, clearly enjoying the rare moment of gossip power. He said it was fun at first, older woman, married, secret meetings. But then she started texting too much, asking if he missed her. You know, needy stuff. I nodded slowly, lips pressing into a tight line. "Thanks for telling me." Ethan blinked. "You're not mad." I gave him a faint smile. "I'm something better." He looked confused, but I didn't elaborate. On the drive home, I let the weight of it settle. All those candles, the ironed shirts, the gourmet dinners, they weren't about us. They were about her shame. Rachel had been trying to win back something that had never left her. Me. But now I knew she wasn't mourning what she lost. She was panicking about what had left her first. Kevin. It wasn't regret that spurred the salmon dinners and floral arrangements. It was rejection. She thought she could replace me with a thrill and found out, fast, that thrills don't linger. That guys like Kevin, guys with tattoos and snapbacks and gas station rendezvous, they don't do forever. They do curiosity, ego, bragging rights. And when they're done, they vanish. I parked the car outside our house and sat there for a moment, watching the flicker of candlelight through the window. She'd lit them again. The scene was set, like always. But now I wasn't walking into a mystery. I was walking into a performance whose script I had already read. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like the wounded husband. I felt like the one holding the pen. The smell of coffee hit me before I even opened my eyes, freshly brewed, not from the machine's timer, but hand-poured. The kind of coffee you make when you want to impress someone, or apologize. I sat up slowly. Rachel was standing by the edge of the bed, holding a mug in both hands like it was a peace offering. She looked shaken. No makeup, robe loosely tied, hair still tangled from sleep. But her eyes, that glassy stare, told me everything. She was about to say something she'd rehearsed all night. "Morning," she said softly. "I brought you this." I reached for the mug. Our fingers brushed for half a second. She didn't pull away. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "Can we talk?" I took a sip, careful, slow. "About what?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands gripped the tie of her robe like she was anchoring herself. "I haven't been honest with you. And I think I owe you. The front door creaked. Then, soft footsteps. Delicate. Bare. Rachel's words cut off mid-sentence. Her head turned sharply toward the hall. I didn't have to guess. I already knew. Dasha appeared in the doorway like a frame from a dream or a nightmare, depending on whose side you were on. She wore a thin silk robe, barely closed, hair tumbling around her shoulders, no makeup but somehow glowing. She saw Rachel, paused, then turned to me with a calm smile. "Good morning, gentleman boss," she said. "Do you want me to start with the bedroom today?" Silence. No one breathed. Rachel looked at me, then Dasha, then back again. The coffee mug in my hand suddenly felt like a loaded weapon. Dasha stood still, entirely unfazed. Her expression unreadable, like she'd just asked whether I wanted lemon in my tea. Rachel's lips parted. What is this?" I didn't answer right away. Just took another sip of coffee. "Dasha," I said, casually, "why don't you give us a minute?" She nodded, as if this were routine. Of course. Her bare feet padded softly across the floor as she vanished down the hall. Rachel's eyes locked onto mine. Her jaw trembled. Have you too?" Her voice cracked. I said nothing. Not yes. Not no. Just met her stare with the kind of silence that says you don't get to ask questions anymore. Her hands dropped to her sides. "I came in here to tell you the truth. I was going to be honest, Tom." I tilted my head. "And now?" She shook her head slowly. "Now I don't even know what game we're playing." I set the mug down on the nightstand, swung my legs over the edge of the bed, and stood up. "I'm not playing," I said. "You are. You've been." She backed up a step. "So that's what this is? Revenge?" "No," I said calmly. "This is renovation." Rachel's voice rose, thick with disbelief. "You brought another woman into our house to prove what?" I stepped past her, toward the door. "Not to prove anything. Just to clean." She stood frozen as I walked away, the sound of Dasha humming softly from the kitchen growing louder with each step. And in that moment, Rachel wasn't just trembling. She was unraveling. It didn't take long. By mid-morning, the storm finally broke. Rachel tried to hold it together at first, moving through the house stiff and silent, her footsteps sharp against the hardwood. Dasha, as always, floated like nothing was off. Barefoot, serene, humming something faintly Slavic as she wiped down counters and plumped pillows Rachel never noticed before. But silence between two women in the same space, when both know the unspoken, isn't peace. It's gasoline. And someone was always going to light the match. I was in the living room pretending to scroll my phone, but truthfully, I was listening, waiting, reading the room like a weather report. It started in the hallway. Rachel's voice, low and tense. "What exactly do you think you're doing here?" Dasha, soft but firm. "Cleaning. That is what you asked me to do, yes." "You think I'm stupid?" A pause. Then Dasha. "No, but I think you pretend not to see." I stood up slowly, moved to the edge of the entryway, just out of sight. Rachel's voice cracked. "You walk around like you own the place. Flirting. Whispering. Wearing." Her breath hitched. "That robe like you're auditioning to replace me." Dasha didn't raise her voice. "I don't wear anything Tom doesn't leave space for." Boom. The sound of Rachel's laugh, sharp, humorless, ricocheted through the house. "You really think this is about space? He's using you. Don't you get that?" Dasha's words came cool and calm. "Then why do you care?" That's when it exploded. Rachel screamed, something unintelligible, rage stripped of grammar. The sharp crash of ceramic on tile followed. I rushed in just as the mug splintered into a dozen white shards across the floor. She'd thrown it. Dasha didn't flinch, just stared down at the mess. "You want him to suffer?" Rachel spat, turning toward me now. "Is that it, Tom? Is this how you do it? Slow drip torture? Parade your little maid around until I break." I stayed by the door. Calm. Steady. "You broke yourself," I said quietly. Her chest heaved. Eyes wild. "You're emotionally torturing me. You think just because you didn't sleep with her, it doesn't count." "I never said I didn't," I replied flatly. And the silence that followed? That was volcanic. Dasha turned away first. "I will come back later," she said softly. And with a calm that felt rehearsed, she stepped over the ceramic, picked up her bag, and left through the front door. Rachel stood there shaking. That's when we heard it, the faint buzz of a phone camera behind the hedge outside. Our neighbor, Marty, peeking through his front window like a middle-aged journalist hunting tabloid gold. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." I didn't move. "Maybe next time, don't throw things." Her eyes filled. "You made me crazy, Tom." I nodded once. "No, You did that to yourself. Then I stepped past her, crunching lightly over the shattered mug, and walked to the kitchen to make myself a fresh cup of coffee. Because if she wanted chaos, she came to the right place. The house was quiet again, but not the heavy, aching quiet of before. This was the stillness that comes after a fire's burned itself out. Nothing left to ignite, nothing left to save. Rachel didn't speak to me after the argument. She vanished into the guest room, door closed, not even footsteps creaking beneath her. Dasha hadn't returned. I hadn't called her. Didn't need to. What came next had nothing to do with her. It was time to end the performance. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, a pen, and a printed copy of the divorce papers I'd had ready for a while. Quietly revised, edited, witnessed, signed. No theatrics, no dramatics, just precision. I didn't write a long letter. No poetic speech about heartbreak. No tortured paragraphs about betrayal. I left her exactly what she left me. The truth, in its most economical form. I wrote the note on a clean sheet of printer paper, folded once. Your thrill cost you everything but the houseplants. That was it. She could keep the succulents. The snake plant by the window. The fiddle leaf fig she babed more than she ever babed our marriage. Seemed only fair. I laid the note on top of the papers and placed them in the center of the dining table, where she'd find them in the morning. Not her pillow. Not a weeping bedside confrontation. The dining table. The same one where she once told me she wanted to start a family. The same one she stopped sitting at months before she kissed a cashier outside a gas station. Before heading to bed, I walked around the house once, turned off the porch light, rinsed my mug in the sink, straightened a crooked rug. Movements calm, steady, measured. Control didn't have to come loud. Sometimes it arrived in silence. Paper, ink, and a folded note that cut sharper than any raised voice. Upstairs, I paused outside the guest room door. I didn't knock. I didn't speak. I simply stood there, letting the weight of what was coming settle into the walls. This wasn't revenge. It was release. I slept soundly that night. Not because I didn't care, but because, finally, I did. For myself. I came downstairs late the next morning. No rush. I already knew what waited on the table. What I didn't expect was the silence of someone waiting beside it. Rachel sat there in one of my old flannels. Oddly symbolic, considering what was spread out between us. The divorce papers lay untouched, the note still folded neatly on top. She hadn't moved them. She was just sitting there, pale small, like a student waiting for a verdict. She looked up the moment I entered. You're serious? I said nothing, just pulled out the opposite chair and sat down slowly. Her fingers tightened around her coffee mug. I thought maybe this was another push. Some kind of test. I met her gaze, calm. It's not. She blinked hard. You're really done with us. I reached into my bag and pulled out the photos. The ones from the gas station. From her tagged stories. From Kevin's account before he realized privacy settings mattered. One by one, I laid them out between us, like cards in a game she no longer knew how to play. Her lips parted, breath catching in her throat. Why would you print them? To remind myself I'm not crazy, I said. To remember what truth looks like when denial comes dressed in soft apologies. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with a trembling breath. I didn't do it to destroy you, she whispered. I swear. I didn't even think about you in that moment. That much, I believed. She looked away, tears sliding quietly now. I felt dead inside, like I was sleepwalking through my own life. And Kevin, he made me feel something again. Alive, I said. She nodded. Yes, alive. Not numb. Not invisible. I leaned in, voice low but steady. And was it worth it? She hesitated. Tom. I tapped the photos, one finger resting on the clearest shot, her lips on Kevin's, hand tucked into his jacket like they belonged in another world. Is this aliveness worth the fallout? That was the question. Not do you regret it? Not did you love him? Just, was it worth what you've lost? Rachel's chin quivered. She didn't speak. So I stood, collected the photos, slipped them back into the envelope. You don't get to come back just because you feel sorry, I said quietly. Regret doesn't rebuild what you chose to burn. She looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. I didn't think you'd ever leave. I gave a faint, humorless smile. That was your first mistake. Then I walked out of the room, leaving the divorce papers behind, still unsigned by her. But that didn't matter anymore. Because I'd already signed everything that counted: my peace, my exit, my future. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nerves. I wore a navy suit that still fit me from my brother's wedding, polished shoes, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because it felt right to walk in looking like the man I'd spent months becoming. Rachel sat 2 rows away, clutching her lawyer's folder like it might protect her from the outcome she already knew was coming. Her hair was neatly curled, her makeup flawless. But her eyes, those didn't lie. They never had. The hearing itself was clinical. Numbers, assets, signatures. No sob stories. Just the unraveling of what we'd once called a life, now split into bank accounts and real estate. I didn't fight dirty. I didn't have to. Her paper trail did that for me. The joint account she drained. The signatures she'd faked on a credit withdrawal. The screenshots. The quiet fact that she'd never once filed anything to oppose what I laid out. In the end, the judge didn't need convincing. The house, mine. The cabin upstate, also mine. Retirement account, preserved, untouched. She got a modest settlement. Fair, technically, but less than she'd imagined, I could tell. Her lawyer tried to push, but I had receipts. And this time, they weren't metaphorical. When the gavel dropped, the sound barely registered. But the silence that followed, that was deafening. Outside the courthouse, the sky was bright and sharp, blue in the way only cold spring mornings can be. Rachel caught up to me on the sidewalk, heels clicking, breath fast like she'd chased something she didn't know how to catch. "Tom," she called softly. I stopped, turned. She looked small standing there. For once, not composed, not polished, just stripped down to the woman who had gambled and lost. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said. Her voice cracked. "I thought maybe, if I just showed you I was sorry." I held up a hand. Not to stop her, just to end it gently. "No, you didn't want it to end at all. You just didn't want consequences." She blinked fast. "I made a mistake." "No," I said calmly. "You made a choice." Tears rolled down her cheeks now. Real ones. Not for drama. Not for show. For loss. But that loss, it belonged to her. I stepped closer, just enough that she could hear the words without anyone else catching them. "You wanted something wild," I said. "Now you get to survive it alone." She shook her head, lips trembling. "Please don't say that." But I did, because it was true. And then, I turned. Didn't hug her. Didn't console her. Didn't offer hope. Just walked. Down the courthouse steps, out onto the pavement, toward the life I rebuilt brick by deliberate brick. The one she never thought I'd have the strength to walk into without her. I never looked back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared about myself more. Some endings don't come with fireworks or closure speeches. They come with silence and the sound of footsteps walking away. If you've ever survived betrayal, if you've ever had to rebuild alone, you know this truth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave without a single backward glance. So tell me, what would you have done? Drop it in the comments. And if this hit you somewhere deep, like and subscribe. Because the next story, you'll want to hear how that one ends.